Today I want to talk about how to take your business to the next level with coaching. Now, the photographer can be a very egotistical creature. And those of us who own our own businesses, we tend to look at what we do as better than average in most cases. And of course, there's some exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, having that mindset that your photography is better than it actually is, well, it really just slows our growth, both as a photographer and as business owners. Now, I come from corporate America, and I was a coach to employees. I received coaching myself. I received training in coaching. I know that no matter how good the best player is on a team, their success is going to be limited to their own efforts. It's the same in sports. But if they have a coach, like in sports, to help get them to that next step, they'll be successful. So here I am sitting here making all these YouTube videos talking about the business of real estate and interiors photography, and I'm positioning myself as kind of an expert on these things. But the truth is, I'm still here learning everything just as much as everyone else. I made this channel because nobody else was doing it, and I wanted to start the conversation. So here I am. With all that said, what I've decided to do is hire a coach myself in my business to help me get to the next step. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this decision and hopefully encourage you to consider doing this in your business. Now, before I talk to you about this coaching thing, I thought I'd share a little bit about where I am in my business and why I think that for me it's the right time to bring on a coach. Now, I've always been a self-starter. Over the last 8 years of doing this business, I feel like I'm kind of at the point where I've reached the limit of where I can grow on my own, and I honestly probably should have had a coach this entire time. I've just pretty much relied on the forums and conversations and mastermind groups. I'll talk about a mastermind group on another video. The next one, maybe. Who knows? I guarantee you that I would be much further along than I currently am had I had a coach. So currently, the majority of my shoots are straight up real estate. At the beginning of this year, I actually brought on another photographer to start taking on some of that workload so that I can focus more on the next phase of my career, which would be more design and architectural work. Now, I've already made some moves to kind of head in that direction on my own. The first thing I did was actually sat down and made the decision. I know that doesn't seem like an actual step, but it's actually a huge step in the process. Once you decide that you want to make some kind of change, you really it's hard to break that, and you start heading that direction. Like, you can write down a goal or a decision, but what happens then is you start thinking about things differently. For example, once I finally decided to start focusing on interiors and architecture, the first thing I did that was actionable is I started posting only my day-to-day work on Instagram. Prior to that, it was landscapes. But then I started targeting designers and builders and architects. And yeah, a lot of the stuff on my Instagram feed is real estate, but those are most likely nicely staged homes, and I would take the extra time for those particular shots and shoot them like I would shoot an interior shoot or an architecture shoot. Now, I also put up a website. I've actually neglected it quite a bit. I essentially created a website. I put up some photos that got good responses on Instagram, and I posted them on my website, and I just kind of ignored it. That's another thing we're going to be working on in my coaching. Now, I'm fairly savvy at business and marketing, but when it's your own business and your name is on it and it's your own brand, it's hard to analyze your own business when you're that close to it, like when you're actually sitting inside of it and when it's your own name. This is where a coach is going to come in handy. Hiring somebody that has more experience than you, or at the very least, is at a place that you want to be in your business, is, I would argue, more important than the next piece of equipment you buy. That is, if you want to grow your business at a faster pace. Recently, I was in Atlanta, and I met up with photographer Gary Gomez, who highly suggested reaching out to Tony Colangelo for coaching. You guys may have seen Tony on Photography for Real Estate. But he talked about the things that Tony was able to bring to the table and what he did for his business. Now, I have to be honest, I'm a little blunt. Some of us think we are too good to hire a coach. We don't think we need coaching. And again, if I'm being honest here, I was one of those people. I wasn't like super stubborn about it. I was always open to it, but there was part of me that I thought I was good where I was at. But it wasn't until the last year or so that I realized that I needed to start bringing a coach on to help me guide me through the next phase of my career. Now, right now, where it stands in my business, I'm actually lacking a lot of the things that I need to be in place before I actually start going full on into that next phase of my business. So I had my first coaching call with Tony a few weeks back, and one of the things that I was looking forward to was getting a better understanding of how to think about composition, and just really my photography in general. So we spent about 2 hours just discussing composition from a psychological point of view. We did some image critiquing, and we just chatted in general about how we think about composition. Now, I happen to be pretty good with composition, and this isn't me tooting my own horn. I mean, a lot of people tell me that, and I don't pay them to. So it wasn't an extensive conversation. But again, just because I'm already good at something doesn't mean I can't become better at it or look at it differently. And I definitely walked away from that conversation with a better understanding than I did walking into it. Prior to the conversation, I pretty much relied very much on my experience and just intuition really in my photography. It was rule of thirds, and I kind of went off of that, and that was the extent of my composition. But even though I mostly nailed composition, I didn't know how to think about it. I'm not super technical, so I would really just go based on feelings. It's just a hard concept to explain. But again, I want to be able to learn how to think about my photography while I'm on location and in editing, instead of just relying on that intuition and my gut feeling. I want to be able to talk about composition to my clients when I'm there with them. Now, we haven't talked about it yet. That's actually the next thing. But another thing that I'm really looking forward to is working on my branding. When it comes to branding my real estate photography business, I have zero issues because I use a name that's not my own. I'm able to look at that objectively. And I was able to create a solid brand out of it. Now, with myself, it's very much about self-awareness. When you're trying to brand yourself, I have enough self-awareness to navigate me through the social situations, but when it comes to branding, I need somebody with experience, expertise who can help me map that out. And I would say finally, the third thing that I'm really looking forward to is really just a better understanding of this industry and a little bit of a better understanding specifically around pricing and just being aware of what the status quo is in the design and architecture industries. As a bonus, I mean, I know that I'm going to learn many other things that I'm not outlining here that I hadn't thought of, and I'm just really looking forward to them. And I will keep you guys all posted as time goes on with any changes in my business and any realizations that I come to through this process. All right, so before we wrap up, here's a few things you guys should look for in a coach if you're going to go down that route. First thing, they should be at least a little bit further in their career than you, or they're where you want to be eventually. Now, this doesn't mean that they've been doing it longer. There are some people who have only been doing it for a year or so that are more than qualified to coach somebody. Zach Spross, who's a photographer down in Texas, is a good example. He's only been doing this a couple years, but man, that guy is so knowledgeable. He's killing it in his business, and I would hire him to talk about my business if that's the direction I wanted to go. I don't want to be that busy. I'm just saying it isn't all about experience. It's about learning how you can start heading in the direction that you want to be and hiring somebody where they're where you want to be. Second thing is that you should hire somebody who has experience coaching, preferably somebody who has referrals or testimonials. Sometimes there are people who are killing it and they're easy to talk to and they're full of information, but they don't really make for a good coach for various reasons. The third thing, and this is actually more on you, but you actually have to like the person and you have to take the things that they say to heart. You can't let your pride get in the way. I don't care if you're Mike Kelly or Scott Hargis. You're never too good to have a coach if you want change in your business, if you want to grow it to a place that you can't get to on your own. All right, guys. Hopefully this video was encouraging. Again, I think if you want your business to go to the next step, it's going to be really hard to get there on your own. I don't care how savvy you are. I consider myself very savvy, but I'm not going to be able to get to the place I want to on my own. I just don't have the knowledge that somebody else does, okay? So you guys, if you hadn't yet, please subscribe, and we will see you next week with a brand new episode.